In this video we will talk about crime. And also, deviance is commonly equated with crime. The two concepts are related, but they are not the same thing. Deviance refers to all norm violations, whereas crime refers only to acts that violate actual law. After this video, you will be able to describe the various types of crime and discuss the nature and extent of crime in the United States. Crime is defined as a violation of criminal law for which some governmental authority applies formal penalties. If you have lousy table manners or you have incredible poor taste in clothes, that is considered deviant against the norm, but it's not criminal. However, if you drive down I-5 going 85 miles an hour, you're committing a crime. And it's a lot more than just being deviant, because you're actually breaking a law. The textbook mentions the crime index, which refers to the 8 types of crime on which the FBI collects data every year. These include murder, rape, robbery, assault, burglary, theft, motor vehicle theft, and arson. So we have one type of crime against people, and then we have one type of crime against property. Sociologists classify crimes in terms of how they are committed and how society views these offenses, and they tend to distinguish between the types of crime. If you hear victimless crime, what do you think? What kind of examples can you think of for victimless crimes? I have a dice here, so it's kind of the idea for gambling, drug abuse, prostitution is a lot of times considered victimless crimes. Because the definition for a victimless crime is the willing exchange among adults of widely desired but illegal goods and services. There are two sides of this argument. People that argue for this idea and actually say, yeah, there is a thing as victimless crime, is people who argue that we are talking about willing adults who should have the right to use drugs or to gamble if that's what they want. They usually hold the opinion that the state or the government has no right to tell adults what is morally right or wrong, and that these things should not even be considered crimes since two adults enter into this exchange willingly. Also, they argue that these crimes are impossible to prevent and that our criminal justice system should instead concentrate on real offenses with real victims. So the basic argument is that in a victimless crime, there is no victim. However, critics of decriminalization object to this notion that these crimes are actually victimless. They say, for example, compulsive gambling and illegal drug use can cause personal and property damage. Prostitution reinforces the idea that women are just objects to be used for men's pleasure. Alcohol and drug abuse can lead to drunk driving, to domestic violence, and have many other victims in its path. So they argue there is no such thing as a victimless crime. A professional criminal or career criminal is a person who pursues crime as a day-to-day occupation, developing skilled techniques and enjoying a certain degree of status among other criminals. And some professional criminals specialize in burglary or in safecracking, hijacking of cargo, pickpocketing, and shoplifting. So unlike the person who engages in crime only once or twice, professional thieves make a business of stealing. They devote their entire working time to planning and executing crimes, and sometimes travel across the nations to pursue their professional duties. Organized crime is considered to be the work of a group that regulates relations between various criminal enterprises involved in various illegal activities, including smuggling, sale of drugs, prostitution, and gambling. Organized crime dominates the world of illegal business just as large corporations dominate the conventional business world. Income tax evasion, stock manipulation, consumer fraud, and bribery. These are all examples of white-collar crime. Illegal acts committed in the course of business activities, often by affluent, respectable people. And a new type of white-collar crime has emerged in recent decades, and that is cybercrime, which is the illegal activity primarily conducted through the use of computer hardware or software. Also under white-collar crime is what's called corporate crime, or any act by a corporation that is punishable by the government, and it can take many forms and include individuals, organizations, and institutions among its victims. The government considers an ordinary crime to be a hate crime when the offender is motivated to choose a victim based on race or religion, ethnic group, national origin, or sexual orientation, and when evidence shows that hatred promoted the offender to commit the crime. More and more scholars and police officials are turning their attention to transnational crime, or crime that occurs across multiple national borders. And here are just a few of the examples of what is considered a transnational crime. So bankruptcy and insurance fraud, computer crime, corruption and bribery of public officials, environmental crime, hijacking of airplanes, illegal drug trade and illegal sale of firearms and ammunition, infiltration of legal businesses, intellectual property crime, migrant smuggling, networking of criminal organizations, sea piracy and terrorism, theft of art and cultural objects, and trafficking in body parts and human beings. If we look at crime statistics, we can see that typically the crime data reported in the United States are based on index crimes. Again, those are the 8 crimes that I mentioned at the beginning of this video. These crimes are tabulated each year by the FBI. Index crimes include murder, rape, robbery, and assault, which are the violent crimes committed against people, and then property crimes of burglary, motor vehicle theft, and arson. And the National Crime Victimization Survey was initiated in 1972. Those who administer victimization surveys question ordinary people, not police officers, to determine whether they have been victims of crimes. If we look at crime trends, crime fills the news reports on television, over the internet, and in newspapers, but there has actually been a significant decline in violent crimes in the US in recent years after many years of increases. So dramatic declines have occurred within the last decade. If we look at international crime rates, during the 1980s and 1990s, violent crimes were much more common in the United States than in Western Europe. And England, Ireland, Denmark, and New Zealand all have higher rates of car theft than the United States. This is according to the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime. A particularly worrisome development has been the rapid escalation in homicide rates in developing countries that supply drugs to industrialized countries, especially the United States. And the huge profits generated by cocaine exports to North America and Europe have allowed drug gangs to arm themselves to the point of becoming illegal armies. If you have any questions about the material or need help at any point, please email me anytime. I am here to help.